Jake woke up in a medical bay 3 days later. His head felt like someone had taken it apart and put it back together wrong, but he was alive. That was more than he had expected. "Welcome back," Lisa said from a chair beside his bed. She looked tired but happy. "You've been unconscious for 72 hours. The doctors weren't sure you would wake up at all." Jake tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. His entire body ached, and there was a strange buzzing in his head that hadn't been there before. What happened to the Zephyrians? Gone. Admiral Vextol retreated with what was left of his fleet about an hour after you activated the quantum reversal. Half his ships were too damaged to jump to hyperspace. The other half barely made it out of the system. Jake looked around. The medical bay. It was clearly human-built, not alien. "How did you get a rescue team here so fast?" Lisa smiled. "We didn't have to call for rescue. Your quantum reversal sent out an energy pulse that every ship within 50 light years could detect. The human Navy arrived 6 hours later to investigate what they thought was a new type of weapon test. A man in a Navy uniform walked into the medical bay. He was older than Jake, with gray hair and the kind of bearing that came from years of command. The insignia on his uniform marked him as an admiral. "Sergeant Morrison," the admiral said. "I'm Admiral Grant Hayes, commander of the Fifth Fleet. I need to debrief you about what happened here." Jake struggled to sit up straighter. "Yes, sir." "Admiral." Hayes pulled up a chair. "Before we start, I want you to know that your actions here have been classified at the highest levels. What you did goes far beyond normal military operations." "I was just doing my job, sir." "Your job was to inspect alien mining operations. You weren't supposed to single-handedly prevent the destruction of 12 human colonies." Admiral Hayes activated a holographic display that showed the star system. "Dr. Campbell has explained the technical details, but I want to hear it from you. How did one Marine manage to defeat an entire Zephyrian fleet?" Jake thought about how to explain it. "I got lucky, sir. The aliens underestimated humans. They thought we were weak because we don't have their advanced technology. They forgot that sometimes the simple approach works better than the complicated one." "Simple?" Admiral Hayes gestured at the holographic display, which showed the quantum crystal network spread throughout the solar system like a glowing web. "Sergeant, you collapsed and rebuilt the gravitational structure of an entire star system. That's not simple. That's impossible. Permission to speak freely, sir?" "Granted." Jake looked at the display and tried to find the right words. "The Zephyrians are smarter than us. They have better technology and better weapons, but they think too much. They make plans within plans within plans. They assume everyone else thinks the same way. And humans don't? Marines don't, sir. We see a problem, we find the most direct solution, and we execute it. The Zephyrians spent months planning how to extract every last crystal from this planet. They never considered that someone might try to reverse the process." Admiral Hayes nodded slowly. "Dr. Campbell tells me that the quantum reversal should have killed you. The neural feedback alone was beyond anything a human brain should be able to survive." Jake touched the back of his head, where the interface cables had been connected. He could still feel something there, a faint connection to the quantum network that would probably never go away completely. "I think the network helped me, sir. It didn't want to die any more than we did." "The network is alive?" "I think so. When I was connected to it, I could feel ... intelligence. Something that had been sleeping in those crystals for millions of years. The Zephyrians were about to kill it, and it helped me stop them." Admiral Hayes exchanged glances with Lisa. "Dr. Campbell, is that possible?" Lisa nodded. "The quantum crystals show signs of information processing that go far beyond simple mineral structures. Jake's description matches some theories about quantum consciousness that we've never been able to test." "So we have an alien intelligence in our star system now?" A friendly one, Jake said. It protected the system once. I think it will keep protecting it. Admiral Hayes stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the twin suns were rising over the planet, their light filtering through the quantum crystal formations that now filled space between the stars. Sergeant Morrison, do you understand what you've accomplished here? I stopped the bad guys from blowing up the star system, sir. You did more than that. You proved that human determination can overcome any technological advantage. Word of. This incident has already reached the highest levels of government. Every alien empire in this sector is going to reconsider their assumptions about human military capabilities. Jake felt uncomfortable with the praise. I was just doing my job. Sir, your job was to conduct an inspection and report back. Instead, you prevented a genocide and created the most stable defensive position in human space. Admiral Hayes turned back to face Jake. The quantum field you generated makes the star system almost impossible to attack. The crystals deflect energy weapons and disrupt hyperspace navigation. Any hostile fleet that enters this space will find their technology working against them, just like the Zephyrians did. Does that mean we're keeping the system? A government is declaring this sector a permanent human colony. We're calling it the Morrison Field, after the man who saved it. Admiral Hayes smiled. Congratulations, Sergeant. You've just become one of the most important people in human history. Jake lay back down, suddenly feeling very tired. What happens now? Now you recover. The doctors say the neural interface left some permanent changes in your brain structure, but nothing dangerous. You might find that you have an intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics for the rest of your life. And then? Then you have a choice. The military wants to promote you and put you in charge of training other soldiers in unconventional warfare. The scientific community wants to study your connection to the quantum network. The government wants to use you as a symbol of human achievement. Jake closed his eyes and thought about it. 3 months ago, he had been a forgotten soldier stranded on a dead planet. Now he was apparently a hero who had changed the course of human history. Can I just go home? He asked. Admiral Hayes laughed. Eventually. But first, I think you should know that the Zephyrian Empire has officially requested a meeting with human leadership. They want to negotiate a peace treaty. It seems that losing an entire fleet to one human soldier has made them very interested in avoiding future conflicts with us. Jake opened his eyes. They're scared of us now. Terrified, Lisa sighed. Admiral Vextil's report to his superiors described you as a supernatural force that could manipulate reality itself. The Zephyrian military is recommending that their empire avoid human space entirely. But I'm just a Marine. Exactly, Admiral Hayes said. You're just one human soldier. And if one human soldier can do what you did, what could an entire human army accomplish? That's what every alien empire in this sector is asking themselves right now. Jake looked out the window at the quantum crystal formations dancing between the twin suns. Somewhere out there, 2 billion people were going about their daily lives, completely unaware that they had almost died and been saved by a Marine with a rifle and some improvised explosives. That was fine with Jake. He hadn't saved them for glory or recognition. He had saved them because it was the right thing to do. Because Marines never left people behind. Because sometimes, when everything seemed impossible, one person had to stand up and refuse to quit. Sir, Jake said to Admiral Hayes, when I do go home, can I bring Dr. Campbell with me? She deserves to see Earth after everything she's been through. Lisa smiled. I'd like that. Admiral Hayes nodded. I think that can be arranged. But first, Sergeant Morrison, we need to figure out what to do with the most powerful defensive system ever created, and the Marine who built it with determination and demolition charges. Jake Morrison closed his eyes and smiled. He was just one human soldier. But sometimes, that was exactly what the universe needed. The quantum crystals hummed softly in the space between the stars, holding the system together and keeping watch for any threat that might endanger the 2 billion lives they now protected. And somewhere in that vast network, a part of Jake Morrison's consciousness remained, ready to defend his people for as long as the stars continued to shine. The quantum chamber was like stepping into another dimension. The walls curved in impossible directions, and Jake's eyes couldn't focus on any one surface for more than a few seconds. Blue lights pulsed through crystal formations that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Jake's suit readings showed radiation levels that should have killed him instantly, but the makeshift shielding was holding. For now. Jake, can you hear me? Lisa's voice crackled through the radio, already distorted by quantum interference. I'm here, Jake said. Where's the central processing unit? Follow the blue lights. They'll lead you to the main quantum matrix. Jake, the Zephyrians are right behind you. I can't hold them much longer. Jake could hear energy weapons firing in the background. Lisa was making her last stand in the workshop while he descended into the planet's heart. He had to move fast out the passage downward, defied everything Jake knew about physics. Sometimes he was walking on solid ground. Sometimes he seemed to be floating through liquid light. The quantum crystals grew larger as he went deeper, some of them tall as trees and pulsing with their own inner fire. His radiation detector was screaming warnings, but Jake ignored it. The neural interface cables in his helmet were already warming up, preparing to connect his brain to the alien quantum network. He could feel something vast and intelligent stirring in the crystals around him. Jake, Lisa's voice was fading. They're through the workshop. You're on your own now. The radio went silent. Jake was alone in the quantum chamber with only the humming of crystals for Company Dot. He reached a chamber that was larger than a football stadium. The walls were covered in quantum crystals that formed complex patterns like a giant computer circuit board. In the center of the room stood the central processing unit, a column of pure energy that reached from floor to ceiling. This was it, the brain of the quantum network, the thing that controlled the mining operation and held the star system together. Approached the CPU and found the neural interface port. It was designed for Zephyrian anatomy, but Lisa had modified his helmet to make it compatible. All he had to do was remove his helmet and plug the interface cables directly into his skull. That was when the Zephyrian soldiers found him. They came through the passage like a wave of gray death, their energy weapons lighting up the chamber. But something strange happened as they entered the quantum field. Their advanced technology began to malfunction. Weapons misfired. Armor systems sparked and failed. Their precise military formation fell apart as soldiers stumbled and lost their balance in the twisted gravity. Jake's simple human equipment, built from basic metals and electronics, worked perfectly. The quantum field that crippled alien technology had no effect on his rifle or his determination. He took cover behind a crystal formation and opened fire. His bullets found their marks while the Zephyrian energy beams went wild, ricocheting off crystal surfaces in random directions. The aliens were better trained and better equipped, but they were fighting in an environment that turned their advantages against them. The battle was brief but vicious. Jake used every trick he had learned in a decade of combat, moving from cover to cover and making every shot count. The quantum crystals helped him, reflecting and redirecting energy beams to strike the aliens from unexpected angles. Last Zephyrian soldier fell. Jake was alone in the chamber, with a bullet wound in his shoulder and burns across his arms. His suit was damaged, but still functional. More importantly, the central processing unit was undamaged. Jake removed his helmet and connected the neural interface cables to the ports behind his ears. The cold metal against his skin made him shiver. Here goes nothing, he said to himself. and activated the interface. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Jake's consciousness exploded outward as his mind connected to the quantum crystal network. Suddenly, he could perceive the entire star system as a single living organism. He felt the twin suns straining against each other, held apart by quantum forces that were growing weaker every second. He could sense the Zephyrian extraction ships, pulling more crystals from the planet's core, unraveling the delicate balance that had existed for millions of years. But more than that, Jake could feel the network itself. It was alive in ways that human science couldn't understand. The quantum crystals weren't just rocks. They were neurons in a vast intelligence that had been sleeping in the planet's core since the beginning of time. The network spoke to him without words, showing him visions of what would happen if the extraction continued. The binary stars would spiral together in a death dance that would sterilize dozens of worlds. But it also showed him something else, a way to reverse the process and create something beautiful instead of something terrible. Jake reached out with his enhanced consciousness and found the controls for the quantum resonators. The alien technology was complex, but through the network interface, he could understand it perfectly. Every system, every process, every line of code became clear to him. He began the reversal. Instead of extracting quantum energy from the crystal network, Jake caused the resonators to pump energy back into it. The effect rippled through the entire planet as new crystals began to form at an incredible rate. The Zephyrian extraction ships detected the change immediately. Their mining equipment, designed to harvest crystals, was suddenly flooded with more quantum energy than they could handle. Systems overloaded. Ships began to phase in and out of reality as their quantum drives went haywire. Jake felt their panic. Through the network, the aliens had no idea what was happening. Their perfectly planned operation was falling apart because one human soldier had turned their own technology against them. But the process was killing Jake. The neural feedback from interfacing with the quantum network was tearing his mind apart. He could feel his consciousness fragmenting as he tried to process information at levels far beyond human capacity. Through the network, he sensed Admiral Vexthil aboard his flagship, screaming orders at his crew. The Admiral finally understood what Jake had done. The extraction operation wasn't just failing. It was reversing. Instead of destabilizing the star system, Jake was making it more stable than ever before. Jake pushed harder, forcing more energy through the resonators. New quantum crystals erupted throughout the planet's core, then spread outward through space itself. The crystal network was growing exponentially, creating a stabilization field that encompassed the entire solar system. The twin suns, which had been slowly spiraling toward destruction, suddenly locked into perfect harmony. The quantum field created by Jake's intervention made it impossible for them to move out of their optimal orbits. The star system would be stable for billions of years, but Jake was dying. The neural interface was burning out his brain one synapse at a time. He could feel his human consciousness dissolving into the vast intelligence of the quantum network. With his last coherent thought, Jake reached out through the network and touched the minds of every person in the star system. For just a moment, 2 billion humans felt the presence of a Marine sergeant who had given everything to save them. Then Jake Morrison collapsed, his mission complete and his sacrifice made. The quantum network gently released his consciousness, returning him to his human body just as Lisa and a rescue team burst into the chamber. Jake opened his eyes to see concerned faces looking down at him. He was alive, though changed forever by his brief connection to something far greater than himself. Did it work? He whispered. Lisa smiled through her tears. Look at the screens. Jake turned his head and saw the monitoring displays showing the star system's new configuration. The binary stars were locked in perfect stability. The quantum crystal network had grown throughout space, creating a permanent protective field that would keep the system safe forever. More importantly, the Zephyrian fleet was retreating. Their ships, damaged by the quantum reversal, were limping away from a star system they could no longer threaten. Jake Morrison had done the impossible. One human soldier had collapsed an entire star system's destiny and rebuilt it as something better. The Zephyrian fleet arrived at dawn. Jake watched from the mining complex as 12 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace and took positions around the planet. Each ship was the size of a city, bristling with weapons and extraction equipment. The largest ship had to be the command vessel. "That's Admiral Vexthel's flagship," Lisa said, looking through binoculars. "He's the military commander of this sector. If he's here personally, it means this extraction is very important to them." Jake counted the ships and calculated the odds. 12 ships, probably 10,000 Zephyrian soldiers. Advanced weapons and shields. Against one human marine with a rifle and some explosives he had salvaged from the mining equipment. He liked those odds. They meant the aliens would be overconfident. "What's the plan?" Lisa asked. Jake pointed to various locations around the mining complex. "I'm going to make them think there's an army down here. Hit and run attacks. Sabotage their equipment. Make them waste time chasing shadows while you finish preparing the quantum interface. Jake, there are thousands of them. You can't fight a whole fleet by yourself. I'm not going to fight them. I'm going to annoy them." Jake slung his rifle over his shoulder and picked up a bag of improvised explosives. Marines are very good at being annoying. The first Zephyrian shuttle landed near the main mining facility an hour later. Jake watched 20 alien soldiers march out of the ship in perfect formation. They were tall and gray with 4 arms each. Carrying energy weapons that could cut through steel. Jake waited until they were inside the building, then triggered the first explosive charge. The blast brought down half the ceiling on the Zephyrian squad. Jake didn't wait to see how many survived. He was already running to his next position, a maintenance tunnel that led to the power distribution center. The aliens had better weapons and armor, but they didn't know the mining complex like Jake did. He had spent 3 months exploring every corridor and crawl space. He knew which vents connected to which rooms. He knew where the backup power cables ran. He knew exactly where to place charges for maximum damage. The second explosion took out the main power grid. Emergency lights flickered, and as the mining equipment went dark, Jake could hear Zephyrian voices shouting in their alien language. They sounded angry and confused. Good. Confused enemies made mistakes. Jake moved through the ventilation system like a ghost. The vents were too small for Zephyrians, but just right for a human. He planted charges in key locations, then retreated to watch the fireworks. The third explosion destroyed the communication array. The fourth took out the main computer system. The fifth collapsed a section of corridor, trapping a squad of aliens who had been trying to hunt him down. By noon, Jake had convinced the Zephyrians that they were facing a major human military operation. More shuttles arrived from the fleet, bringing hundreds of additional soldiers. They spread out across the complex in search patterns, looking for an enemy that could strike anywhere and disappear like smoke. Admiral Vexthel himself came down to take command of the operation. Jake watched through a security camera as the alien leader stalked through the ruined mining facility. Vexthel was larger than the other Zephyrians, with scars across his gray skin and cybernetic implants that glowed red in the dark. The Admiral was obviously angry. He had expected to arrive at an empty planet and load up his ships with crystals. Instead, he was dealing with a guerrilla war that was costing him time and soldiers. Jake's radio crackled. It was Lisa, calling from the lower levels. "Jake, they're getting close to my workshop. I need more time to finish the interface." "How much more time?" 2 hours, maybe 3. Jake looked at his remaining explosives. He had enough for maybe 6 more charges. After that, he would have to rely on his rifle and whatever he could improvise. I'll buy you the time. Just get that interface working. The afternoon turned into a deadly game of cat and mouse. Jake would strike at one location, then vanish, before the Zephyrians could respond. He destroyed mining equipment, collapsed tunnels, and generally made the aliens' lives miserable. Every time they thought they had him cornered, he would appear somewhere else and blow up something important. Aliens were good soldiers, but they were not used to fighting humans. They expected their enemies to stand and fight like civilized beings. They didn't understand how one primitive human could cause so much chaos with such simple weapons. Jake was running low on ammunition when he heard Admiral Vexthil give new orders to his troops. The alien language was harsh and angry, but Jake had learned enough to understand the important words. The Admiral was tired of playing games. He had ordered his soldiers to stop searching for Jake and start the final crystal extraction immediately. They would take everything remaining in the quantum core, even if it meant working around the sabotage. This was bad news. If the Zephyrians completed their extraction before Lisa finished the interface, billions of people would die. Jake made a decision that went against every instinct he had as a Marine. Instead of continuing to hide and harass the enemy, he was going to attack them directly. He found Admiral Vexthil in the main control room, studying holographic displays of the mining operation. 6 Zephyrian guards stood around the room, but their attention was focused on the displays, not on watching for intruders. Jake slipped in through a maintenance hatch and moved silently across the ceiling. The aliens never looked up. In their culture, attacks came from ground level, not from above. Jake dropped down behind Admiral Vexthil and pressed his rifle against the alien's neck. Tell your soldiers to stop the extraction. The Admiral's forearms tensed, but he didn't move. His red cybernetic eyes glowed brighter. You are the human who has been causing these disturbances. That's right. And I'm the human who's going to stop you from destroying this star system. Vexthil made a sound that might have been laughter. One primitive soldier thinks he can threaten the Zephyrian Empire? We have extracted quantum crystals from 100 worlds. We know what we are doing. You know you're going to kill 2 billion innocent people when those suns collapse. Acceptable losses. The quantum crystals are worth more than a few human colonies. Jake felt anger burn in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. Call off the extraction. No. The Admiral moved faster than Jake expected. All 4 arms struck at once, trying to grab the rifle and break Jake's hold. But Jake had been in hand-to-hand combat with aliens before. He knew they were stronger, but less flexible than humans. Jake rolled backward, keeping the rifle trained. On Vexthil, the 6 guards raised their weapons, but the Admiral raised one hand to stop them. He wanted to handle this personally. You fight well for a primitive, Vexthil said, but you cannot stop what has already begun. The extraction is automated. Even if you kill me, my ships will complete the harvest. Jake backed toward the door, keeping his rifle aimed at the Admiral. We'll see about that. He triggered his last explosive charge. The blast brought down the control room ceiling and filled the air with smoke and debris. In the confusion, Jake escaped through the same maintenance hatch he had used to enter, but now the Zephyrians knew exactly where he was. Every soldier in the complex was converging on his position. He had minutes before they surrounded him completely. Jake's radio crackled again. Lisa's voice was excited, but frightened. Jake, the interface is ready. But you need to get down here now. They're breaking through my security doors. Jake ran through corridors filled with alien soldiers. Energy beams flashed past his head as the Zephyrians opened fire. His body armor deflected some hits, but he could feel burns across his back and arms. He reached the entrance to the lower levels, just as Lisa's workshop exploded behind him. The quantum interface suit was damaged, but still functional. Jake grabbed it and kept running toward the deepest part of the complex. The quantum core chamber was a nightmare of twisted metal and pulsing energy. Strange lights danced across the aisle. Walls and Jake could feel the crystal network humming beneath his feet. The air itself seemed to vibrate with power. This was it. The place where he would either save 2 billion lives or die trying. Jake put on the quantum interface suit and sealed the helmet. The neural interface cables felt cold against his skin. Behind him, he could hear Zephyrian soldiers breaking through the final security doors. There was no time left for doubt or fear. Jake Morrison stepped into the quantum chamber and began his descent into the heart of the planet. Jake spent the next 2 weeks learning everything he could about the alien mining equipment. The machines were complex, but they followed basic rules. Power went in one end. Crystals came out the other end. In between, there were processors and filters and sorting systems. The key was something the aliens called quantum resonators. These were big metal rings that could somehow reach through solid rock and grab crystals without digging. Jake did not understand how they worked, but he understood what they did. They were like invisible hands that could pass through walls. He was studying the main resonator when he heard footsteps behind him. Jake spun around and grabbed his rifle. He had been alone for so long that he almost forgot other people existed. But the person walking toward him was human. A woman in a dirty lab coat with short brown hair and tired eyes. "Don't shoot," she said, raising her hands. "I'm Dr. Lisa Campbell. I'm a prisoner here, just like you." Jake lowered his rifle, but kept it ready. "How long have you been here?" 6 months, Lisa said. "The Zephyrians captured my research ship. They've been making me help them understand the crystal network. Why haven't I seen you before?" Lisa pointed to a door Jake had never noticed. "They keep me in the lower levels. I only come up here when they need me to check on the equipment. I saw you on the security cameras and waited for a chance to talk." Jake studied her face. She looked human, but he had to be careful. The Zephyrians were known for using tricks and lies. "Prove you're really human." Lisa smiled sadly. "I'm from Denver, Colorado. I have a dog named Buddy and a sister named Kate. I became a xenogeologist because I wanted to study alien rocks and maybe find something that could help Earth. Instead, I found something that's going to kill everyone." The way she said it convinced Jake she was telling the truth. "You know about the suns?" "I know everything," Lisa said. "The Zephyrians made me study the crystal network for months. They wanted to know the most efficient way to extract every last crystal. They told me it was just a mining operation. They didn't tell me what would happen when the crystals were gone." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. "They lied to you. They lied to everyone. But I figured it out on my own. The quantum crystals aren't just random rocks. They're connected to each other in a giant network that goes all the way through the planet's core. The network acts like a stabilizer that keeps the binary star system balanced." Lisa walked over to a computer screen and brought up a picture of the planet's interior. "See these lines? Those are crystal formations. They're all connected by quantum entanglement. When one crystal vibrates, all the others vibrate too. It's like a massive instrument that plays a song only the stars can hear. And when the crystals are gone, the song stops. The stars lose their balance and spiral into each other. The collision will create a supernova that destroys everything within 50 light years. 12 colonies. 4 space stations. Almost 2 billion people." Jake stared at the screen. The lines of crystals looked like veins in a living body. "How long do we have?" "The Zephyrians are planning to finish the extraction in 3 days. Their main fleet will arrive tomorrow to take the final load. After that, quotes, Lisa shrugged. We'll have maybe a week before the stars start moving toward each other. Once that starts, nothing can stop it. There has to be something we can do. Lisa shook her head. I've been thinking about it for months. The only way to stop the disaster is to put the crystals back. But that's impossible. The extraction process breaks down the crystal structure. Once they're removed, they can't be replaced. Jake looked at the mining equipment with new understanding. What if we don't put the old crystals back? What if we make new ones? You can't grow quantum crystals. They take millions of years to form naturally. But these machines can manipulate quantum energy, right? They can reach through solid matter and grab crystals without touching them. What if we reverse the process? Instead of taking crystals out, we use the machines to put quantum energy in. Lisa's eyes widened. That might actually work. If we could reverse the polarity of the quantum resonators, they could theoretically generate new crystal formations instead of extracting existing ones. How do we do it? It would require someone to manually recalibrate the central processing unit. The CPU is located in the deepest part of the mining complex, right next to the planet's quantum core. The problem is that the radiation levels down. That would kill a human in minutes. Jake thought about this. He had survived worse situations. He had walked through chemical weapon attacks and radioactive battlefields. He had learned to push his body beyond its limits. How many minutes? Maybe 10 if you had proper protection. But that's not the worst part. To recalibrate the system, someone would have to directly interface with the quantum matrix. That means connecting their brain to the crystal network. No organic being has ever tried that before. What would happen? Lisa hesitated. I don't know. The quantum feedback could cause brain damage, coma, or death. It could also drive someone insane. The crystal network processes information in ways that human minds aren't designed to handle. Jake nodded slowly. It sounded like a suicide mission. But 2 billion people were counting on him, whether they knew it or not. Is there any protective gear here? I've been working on something, Lisa said. I've been secretly modifying a mining suit with extra shielding and neural dampeners. It might protect someone long enough to reach the CPU and start the reversal process. Might? It's the best I can do with what we have. Jake, you have to understand. Even if this works, even if we save the star system, whoever goes down there probably won't come back alive. Jake looked out the window at the twin suns rising over the horizon. Somewhere out there, families were having breakfast. Children were going to school. People were living their lives and planning for the future. They had no idea that their time was running out. Show me the suit, Jake said. Lisa led him through corridors he had never seen before. The lower levels of the complex were darker and stranger than the upper floors. The walls pulsed with energy, and Jake could feel the quantum crystals humming beneath his feet. They reached a workshop where Lisa had been building her makeshift protection suit. It looked like a diving suit, crossed with a spacesuit, covered in extra plates and wires. It was ugly, but it might work. The neural interface is the most dangerous part, Lisa explained. You'll have to remove your helmet and connect directly to the quantum matrix. The suit can protect your body from radiation, but your mind will be completely exposed to the crystal network. Jake picked up the helmet and turned it over in his hands. It was heavier than it looked. How long will I have once I'm connected? Maybe 5 minutes before the neural feedback becomes fatal. You'll need to locate the main resonator controls and reverse their polarity. If you can do that, the quantum energy will start flowing back into the planet instead of being extracted. And then the crystals will grow back? More than that. If my calculations are correct, the feedback loop will create an exponential growth pattern. The crystal network will expand throughout the entire star system, creating a permanent stabilization. Field. The binary stars will be locked in perfect balance forever. Jake put on the suit and checked the seals. It fit well enough. The neural interface cables felt strange against his neck, but he had worn worse equipment in combat. Tomorrow, the Zephyrian fleet would arrive to collect their final harvest. They would expect to find a dead planet and a missing Marine. Instead, they would find that one human soldier had turned their own technology against them. Jake Morrison was ready to collapse a star system to save it. Jake Morrison sat on a rock and watched the twin suns rise over the dead planet. 3 months had passed since his ship exploded. 3 months since the aliens left him here to die. 3 months of eating old food from the mining station, and wondering if anyone would ever come back for him. The planet had no name that humans knew. The military just called it Mining Site 7. It was supposed to be a quick job. Check the alien equipment. Make sure they were not stealing too much. Get back on the ship and go home. Simple, but nothing was ever simple when aliens were involved. Jake remembered the explosion like it was yesterday. The Zephyrian ships came out of nowhere. His transport tried to run, but the aliens were too fast. He watched from the planet's surface as his ride home turned into a ball of fire in the dark sky. The other Marines on the ship were dead. He was alone. The Zephyrians were tall, gray creatures with too many arms and eyes that glowed in the dark. They had been mining this planet for years. The human government let them do it because they paid well and seemed harmless. They took some rocks and crystals. They said they would be careful. They promised not to hurt anyone. Jake had learned not to trust alien promises. He stood up and walked toward the mining complex. The buildings were strange and twisted, like someone had melted metal and let it cool in weird shapes. Everything was too big for humans. The doors were 12 feet tall. The rooms had ceilings that disappeared into darkness. It felt like walking through a giant's house. The mining equipment was still running. Big machines with spinning parts and flashing lights dug deep into the planet. They made sounds that hurt Jake's ears. Sometimes the ground shook so hard that he had to grab onto something to stay standing. The aliens had built their machines to work without them. They could control everything from their ships in space. Jake had found the control room on his second day. It was full of screens showing numbers and pictures he did not understand. But he was a Marine. Marines learned to figure things out. He spent weeks watching the screens and pressing buttons to see what happened. Slowly, he began to understand what the aliens were doing. They were not just mining rocks. They were taking something much more important. The planet was covered in blue, crystals that grew deep underground. The aliens called them quantum crystals. Jake did not know what quantum meant, but he knew the crystals were special. They glowed with their own light. They felt warm when he touched them. Sometimes they made humming sounds like they were alive. Mining machines were pulling these crystals out of the planet's center. Millions of them. Every day, the aliens took more and more. The screens showed that they had taken almost everything. Soon, there would be no crystals left. Jake found this strange. Why did the aliens need so many crystals? What were they for? He got his answer when he found the science station. Hidden in the back of the complex was a room full of alien books and computers. Jake could not read their language, but the computers had pictures. Pictures of this planet. Pictures of the two suns above. Pictures that showed what would happen when all the crystals were gone. Jake stared at the screen and felt his blood turn cold. The crystals were not just pretty rocks. They were holding the planet together. More than that, they were holding the whole solar system together. The two suns were trying to crash into each other. Only the crystals kept them apart. When the aliens took all the crystals, the suns would spiral together and explode. The explosion would destroy everything. This planet, the nearby planets, the space stations. The colonies where millions of people lived. Everything would burn, and the aliens knew this would happen. The computer files showed they had always known. They did not care. They would take their crystals and leave before the suns exploded. Let everyone else die. Jake sat in the alien chair and put his head in his hands. He was just one Marine, one human soldier with a broken radio and no way to call for help. How could he stop an entire alien fleet? How could he save billions of people when he could not even save himself? But then he remembered his training. Marines never quit. Marines never leave people behind. Marines find a way. He stood up and looked at the mining equipment with new eyes. The aliens had built their machines to take crystals out of the planet, but machines could be changed. Explosives could be moved. Systems could be turned around. Jake had spent 10 years in the Marines. He knew how to blow things up. He knew how to break things and put them back together in new ways. He knew how to fight when the enemy was bigger and stronger and had better weapons. The aliens thought he was dead or too weak to matter. They thought humans were soft and helpless. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Jake Morrison was just one human soldier. But sometimes one soldier was enough to change everything. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work.